If you already have a PS5 and want games that actually respect your time and tell a great story, these are the ones worth your controller. If you already have a PS5 and want games that actually respect your time and tell a great story, these are the ones worth your controller. If you want. Starting at number 1, God of War Ragnarok sets the bar for what linear storytelling on PS5 can actually look like. Kratos and Atreus travel across all 9 Norse realms in a journey that hits you emotionally in ways you probably did not expect, mixing brutal and satisfying combat with some of the best character writing in any game this generation. It is a cinematic single-player experience that still holds up as one of the must-play PS5 titles in 2026. Coming in at number 2, The Last of Us Part 1 is one of those story-driven games that demands your full attention from the very first scene. Originally a PS3 classic, this PS5 rebuild brings Joel and Ellie's cross-country journey to life with completely overhauled visuals and refined gameplay, making every moment feel fresh even if you play the original. The emotional weight of this narrative-driven experience is impossible to shake once you finish it. Number 3 on this list of best linear PS5 games is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which takes everything the original sequel did and pushes it further with a no-return roguelike mode and behind-the-scenes commentary baked right in. Ellie and Abby's intertwining stories remain some of the most divisive and powerful writing in modern gaming. If you want a cinematic PS5 game that challenges how you feel about its characters, this one earns its spot without question. Number 4 goes to Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the biggest and most ambitious entry in Insomniac's superhero saga. Playing as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales across a wider version of New York gives the story room to breathe, while the combat mechanics and traversal feel better than ever before. This is a linear action-adventure game that moves fast, looks incredible on PS5 hardware, and delivers one of the most satisfying superhero stories in any medium. At number 5, Resident Evil 4 Remake proves that a classic survival horror game remade with modern polish can actually outshine the original in almost every way. Leon's mission to rescue the president's daughter is still the same tightly designed experience, but Capcom added just enough new content and visual fidelity to make it feel brand new. For fans of linear PS5 games with focused action and tension-filled pacing, this is an easy recommendation. Number 6 is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which remains one of the most visually jaw-dropping linear games you can play on PS5 right now. The dimension-hopping adventure introduced Rivet as a standout new character, while showing off what the console's SSD and DualSense haptic feedback can actually do. It is a family-friendly but genuinely excellent single-player experience that never overstays its welcome and leaves you smiling all the way through the credits. Coming in at number 7, Astro Bot became one of the surprise hits of its release year and went on to win multiple Game of the Year awards. This charming and creative 3D platformer is packed with PlayStation history, clever level design, and moments that use the DualSense controller in ways no other game has matched. For anyone who underestimated it as just a cute tech demo, Astro Bot is easily one of the best linear PS5 exclusives on the platform. Number 8 is Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, a visually stunning samurai story that straddles the line between semi-open and linear progression beautifully. Jin Sakai's journey to protect Tsushima from a Mongol invasion is told with cinematic grace, backed by fluid and incredibly satisfying sword combat that rewards patience and precision. The Iki Island expansion added even more emotional depth to an already rich story-driven PS5 experience. At number 9, A Plague Tale Requiem continues the story of Amicia and Hugo through a bigger and more visually breathtaking world filled with dread, beauty, and heartbreak in equal measure. The stealth-driven gameplay, combined with the rat swarm mechanics, creates tension that very few linear PS5 games manage to sustain across their full runtime. It is a deeply emotional narrative experience that will stay with you long after you put the controller down. Number 10 is Stellar Blade, a Korean-developed action game that launched as one of the most visually distinct and mechanically sharp linear PS5 exclusives in recent years. Playing as Eve, you fight through a post-apocalyptic Earth using a combat system that rewards timing, aggression, and precision in ways that feel incredibly satisfying. It is one of those single-player story-driven games that surprised a lot of people with just how polished and confident it feels from start to finish. Coming in at number 11, Dead Space Remake is the definitive version of one of survival horror's greatest ever games, rebuilt from the ground up for current-gen hardware. The claustrophobic corridors of the USG Ishimura feel more terrifying than ever, with the necromorphs reacting dynamically to damage, and the atmosphere thick with dread every step of the way. If you want a tightly designed linear horror experience on PS5, this one is absolutely unmissable. Number 12 is Alan Wake 2, Remedy Entertainment's long-awaited sequel that blurs the line between game and cinematic experience in genuinely bold ways. Alan's attempts to escape the dark place play out like a living nightmare, while FBI agent Saga Anderson investigates a series of ritualistic murders in the real world. It is one of the most visually striking and narratively inventive linear PS5 games ever made, and an easy standout even in a packed lineup. At number 13, Final Fantasy XVI brings the beloved RPG franchise into pure linear action-adventure territory, with a dark and mature story that stands confidently on its own. Clive Rossfield's war-torn journey through the world of Valistea is backed by an incredible musical score and some of the most cinematic boss fights in any game released on PS5. For fans of single-player, story-driven games who don't mind a slower narrative build, the payoff here is absolutely worth it. Number 14 is Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, a tightly focused and emotionally resonant chapter in Insomniac's superhero series that arguably tells a more personal and impactful story than the larger mainline games. Miles' struggle to define himself as Spider-Man while protecting his community over a charged holiday backdrop gives the narrative a warmth and urgency that few superhero games have matched. It plays beautifully on PS5 and is one of the best shorter linear gaming experiences available on the platform. Coming in at number 15, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection bundles Nathan Drake's final adventure and Chloe Frazier's standalone story into one incredible package optimized for PS5. Both games represent the peak of cinematic action-adventure design, blending platforming, gunplay, and globe-trotting set pieces into experiences that feel like playing through a blockbuster film. For anyone who missed these on PS4, this is the perfect entry point into one of PlayStation's most beloved linear franchises. Number 16 is Kena Bridge of Spirits, an indie title that launched alongside the PS5 and immediately proved that smaller studios could produce AAA-quality linear experiences on the platform. The game follows Kena as she guides spirits to rest, using a gorgeous blend of environmental puzzles, precise combat, and one of the most visually stunning art styles you will find on any console. It is heartfelt, beautiful, and surprisingly challenging, making it an easy recommendation for fans of focused, story-driven games. At number 17, Evil West is one of the most underrated linear PS5 games out there, combining Wild West aesthetics with supernatural horror in a way that feels genuinely fresh and consistently entertaining. The God of War-inspired melee combat, mixed with gunslinging and vampiric enemies, creates a fast and satisfying gameplay loop that only gets better as you unlock more abilities. If you like AA linear action games with character and style, this one deserves far more attention than it gets. Number 18 is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, a globe-trotting first-person adventure that captures the spirit of the classic films better than most licensed games ever have. Machine Games built a series of large, exploration-friendly levels packed with secrets, puzzles, and classic indie humor that rewards curiosity at every turn. Recognized as one of the best story games of 2025, this is a linear PS5 experience that delivers pure fun without taking itself too seriously. Coming in at number 19, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach is Hideo Kojima's most ambitious and visually spectacular game to date. Set across a sun-scorched Australia with dynamic weather, stunning particle effects, and a deeply layered narrative that rewards patience. The core loop of connecting isolated communities through deliveries is refined significantly from the first game, making the moment-to-moment experience more varied and engaging. It is not for everyone, but as a linear, cinematic PS5 game, it is completely unlike anything else in the medium. Number 20 is Ghost of Yotei, Sucker Punch's follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima that introduces a new protagonist and a new era of feudal Japan with equally stunning results. Atsu's story is more character-driven than Jin's, with a final act that delivers the kind of cinematic drama and visceral combat that fans of the original will absolutely love. With PS5 Pro enhancements making the visuals even more breathtaking, this is one of the best linear action-adventure games released in the past year. At number 21, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead is a surprisingly effective linear survival horror game based on the film franchise, built around its sound-based stealth mechanics in ways that actually make use of the PS5's 3D audio hardware. Playing through Alex's attempt to survive in a world haunted by creatures sensitive to noise creates genuine stress and tension without relying on cheap jump scares. It is one of the better licensed games in recent memory, and a solid recommendation for fans of tense, atmospheric linear experiences. Number 22 is the Callisto Protocol, a visually stunning deep space survival horror game from the creative director behind the original Dead Space, set in a brutal prison on Jupiter's moon. The melee-focused combat and zero-gravity horror sequences give it a distinct feel compared to other entries in the genre, even if the story leans on familiar science fiction tropes. For PS5 players who want a visually impressive and atmospheric linear horror experience, it more than delivers on its core promise. Coming in at number 23, Returnal is one of the most demanding and unusual linear PS5 experiences on this entire list, blending bullet hell shooting with a deep psychological narrative that slowly reveals itself across repeated loops through an alien world. The game fully uses the DualSense adaptive triggers to make every weapon feel physically distinct, and the sense of progression when it finally clicks is unlike anything else on the platform. It is challenging, strange, and absolutely unforgettable for players willing to push through its difficulty. Number 24 is It Takes Two, a co-op linear adventure that took the gaming world to surprise with its endlessly inventive level design and genuinely touching story about a couple on the verge of divorce told through their two daughters' eyes. Every chapter introduces entirely new gameplay mechanics that keep the experience feeling fresh from beginning to end, making it one of the most creative single-player and co-op linear games released in recent years. It won Game of the Year, and the praise was absolutely deserved. Wrapping up the list at number 25, Demon's Souls is the PS5 launch title that reminded everyone what next-generation hardware could actually look like. This faithful but visually transformed remake of From Software's cult classic is brutally difficult, hauntingly atmospheric, and still one of the best-looking games on the entire platform years after its release. For players who want a punishing but deeply rewarding linear dungeon crawling experience, Demon's Souls remains an essential PS5 title that should not be overlooked.